The ACC coach with the hottest seat entering this season also has a team with higher expectations than you thought. What's going on in Blacksburg?
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Shout out to the everydayers, and thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. On this episode, a former ACC coach is not only backing Bill Belichick at North Carolina, he also made a really good point about Carolina's priorities when it comes to football. We'll talk about the most likely conference championship matchup in ACC football this year, why it might not be the one you think. But Kenton, when it comes to best and worst in the ACC, so we talked earlier this week about the wacky ESPN FPI ratings, which are analytics based, and yet somehow they bumped their top ACC teams way down, Clemson and Miami, in favor of SEC teams jumping them, despite no new data since June. So once I got over my initial rage of going over these FPI rankings, I saw something else that was interesting. And I don't agree with this. Maybe you do. But the ESPN FPI rankings actually have the Virginia Tech Hokies way higher than you think. It's the same Virginia Tech whose coach is probably on the hottest of seats in Brent Pry, any other coach in the conference right now. They really underachieved at 6 and 7 last year, despite the hype and the talent level that they have. And so ESPN has them rated behind, Clemson is the top in the ACC, Miami second, SMU third, and then Virginia Tech, which means they are in front of the likes of Louisville, Georgia Tech, and Duke, meaning ESPN gives Virginia Tech a higher probability to win more games and a higher probability to get into the college football playoff than those other teams. What say you?
I'm very confused by this because Virginia Tech has a fairly difficult schedule. They have a fairly difficult schedule. They're not returning a ton of production. And so I'm kind of sitting here scratching my head saying, what do they have their own Connor Stallions that we don't know about or something? Do they have what is it that is going on and what's in the water in Blacksburg that has convinced the folks who put together the FBI, hey, we have a lot of significant data points that bode very well for Virginia Tech that don't necessarily do so for these other teams. My biggest concern is I'm not sure. I like Kyron Drones a lot. I think, it's felt like Groundhog's Day, waiting in every year saying this is his year to break out. But Here's the thing about it. I think if you give him a good running game and a receiver like Donovan Green, I think he is primed for a breakout year. The only problem is, quick question, who's the running back? Who's the star? Who's going to be carrying the mail in terms of people carrying that ball?
They lost a good one.
Yeah, Byshaw Tootin was a hell of a back, So I'm sitting here asking myself, where are we getting this confidence for Virginia Tech from? Now, if there is something, and I very seriously mean this, if they did pick up somebody late in the portal that was like, hey, this is a game changer, let me know. Because apparently I've been doing a terrible job of covering the state of Virginia in terms of the portal. I didn't know Malachi Fields was at Notre Dame now. So I can admit I'm not perfect.
Right.
I can admit I'm not perfect. I don't know everything. But I would like to know, is there something that I'm missing, Donno? Is there something that you see that tells you? Because when I look at their schedule, I see at least 4 games where they're very likely to be underdogs coming into the season. I'd say South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Louisville, and Miami. I'd say right now they probably be underdogs in all 4. And so to see a team that they likely wouldn't be favored against be rated behind them in the FPI, a little confusing.
All right, so Virginia Tech, they brought in 30 transfers in this cycle. And that's, it can be a good thing, not necessarily when their highest rated of their 30 transfers is a 3-star, for what that's worth, right? The most impactful guys on paper that they brought in, interior offensive lineman Jaden Muskrat, who was at Auburn, Oklahoma State quarterback, so he'll be a backup quarterback at least this year. Garrett Rangel, Antoine Santiago, who's a linebacker from Texas Tech. But these are, 3-star rated transfers on down. So to answer your question, like I'm not sure if there's like a smoking gun in their transfer class of, oh yeah, this guy's going to be a game changer in the ACC.
Yeah, I think Donovan Green was already a game changer in the ACC for Wake Forest last year, but I think that he's the guy that I'd look at in that skill position group that I'd say is going to make the biggest impact. And
yeah,
yet and still, I'm not. I like Donovan Green a lot. I have seen him torch defenders a lot living in the triangle. With that being said, I'm not sure that he reaches the level to where I'm saying, hey, I'm going to look at you and go from 4 games where you're not favorite to favorite over teams that have patently had success. As much as we talk about retention and what makes a team successful and this and that, Louisville has very quietly been steadily ascending under Braum. Yeah. That is the biggest data point to me. Your head coach's success, despite quarterbacks coming and going, has there been a single quarterback that started 2 seasons straight under Braum? I don't believe so.
Nope, not there.
So every time he replaces those guys, he gets the team to where they need to be. And this time, we're returning 2 of the better backs in the country. I'm looking at that team saying they need this love, not necessarily Virginia Tech in terms of FPI.
Is there anybody in the ACC that you think could surprise based on their expectations? I feel that Duke at 6.5 wins over under, I think is criminally underrated. Not saying they win the ACC championship, but it's a team that won 9 games last year, and their roster might even be a little bit better this year. So I think they can win 8 or 9 games and kind of be a dark horse in the ACC. Anyone else that stands out to you, and don't say Georgia Tech, because I think we've beaten that dead horse by now. I think everyone knows we think Georgia Tech is underrated, but anybody else?
Yeah, well, I look at this year's batch of ACC teams to see what people are expecting for everybody, and honestly, Donno, I don't see any. I know that's going to hurt our conference perception, but I got to be honest. I don't see teams that I see other than the Duke football team that you mentioned, other than the Georgia Tech team that we've already talked about ad nauseum. I don't see a ton of other teams that I'm like, oh man, they're going to blow it out of the water this year. But I will say this: if I had to name one, it is the best predictor of future behaviors is the past. And the team in the past that I came in on and I said, they can win a game here or there. They could get an upset or 2. And then all of a sudden, boom, we're in the conference championship. SMU Mustangs, the Rhett Lashlee and what he has done there, he's done a fantastic job. He has created a situation where their expectation, regardless of conference, we need to be in the conference championship. That's the expectation for him. They, in the last 2 years, have been 2 for 2. Every conference we're in, we're going to be in that conference championship conversation or game. And I believe their under-over is 7.5? So with that in mind, I wouldn't be surprised if a team at 7.5 that has these past few years under Rhett Lashlee been a 9+ win team.
Oh, it's 8.5 actually.
Yeah. Oh, okay. 8.5. Either way, I think even at 8.5, I wouldn't be shocked to see them outperform that.
I'm also hoping for a year when like the teams that are, the alleged bottom feeders, like don't embarrass us. Wake Forest has a new head coach in Jake Dickert. Hopefully they can get a little momentum this year. Their over under is only 4.5 wins. You got Stanford out there with their crazy academic standards, lost a ton of players in the portal, and they have a known interim head coach running things this year in Frank Reich. Stanford's over-under, Kenton, is only 3.5 wins this year. They open up their season against Hawaii, which from most Power 4 teams, you would say it's probably a nice winnable non-conference game. They're 2.5-point underdogs in Hawaii to open up the season, which is not surprising given how Stanford's team looks. But can they exceed their expectations? Can Virginia, who's like always a tough out, they just don't get the wins? And Tony Elliott, I think, is on the hot seat as well. Can Virginia exceed expectations this year? I would also like to have a year where we can start to pump our chests the way the SEC folks do that say, hey, even our bad teams can go out there and beat anybody.
Oh yeah, I'd absolutely love that. And the CEO of the new company I'm working at is a Stanford grad, so we
Hey!
support the Cardinal on this show. But in all seriousness, I don't expect much from Stanford. But like you said, Donald, just a situation where one or two upsets. That's all we need.
Yeah.
Come on now. We don't need y'all to go out there and be world beaters. We don't need Syracuse to run the table necessarily, and not saying that they're a bottom feeder because they were fantastic last year. But I'm saying we don't need that type of thing. We don't need Virginia Tech to win all their games against SEC opponents. We just need a couple. Just look good. Just don't lose to Hawaii. I am sorry to tell you, a team that was so off the map. Did you know that they were one of, if not the only FBS team whose stadium was not featured on College Football 25?
Oh, really?
You cannot lose to that team. I'm sorry to tell you. That is going to be a tough out to explain to your fans. Interim coach notwithstanding, it's going to be tough to explain that. So, like you said,
there must be some budget cuts happening at EA Sports, because I guarantee you every year they're like, hey, when do we get to go out to Hawaii to survey that stadium for the new Sorry, buddy, we can't afford to send you out there this year. Their stadium's not in the game.
Exactly. So we're hoping to see them do their thing there. But again, this is all a matter of, like you said, Donna, we're not expecting these teams. We're not expecting our bottom feeder teams to be 8-9 win teams. That's not realistic. But what we are expecting, just get a couple upsets. Just be competitive. Just win all your games against a group of 6 teams, or at least be competitive in those.
Come December in Charlotte, could the conference championship game be one you're not expecting? You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally, feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I've been using Monarch now for the past several months, and sometimes I look at myself, I'm like, how did I do this before Monarch? When it comes to all the insights that I get on budgeting, having all my accounts in one place, I've been able to cut my spending and just do a better job protecting my family financially. Do not let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. It's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. We're also proudly brought to you by OpenPhone. If you're running a business, every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you needed a service. If the person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. You moved on. That's why you need OpenPhone, so you never miss an opportunity to connect with your customers. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications. Do you juggle 2 phones just to keep business and personal calls separate? OpenPhone solves that instantly. Your whole team can share one number and respond to customers like a shared inbox. No more who's handling this. And the AI agent handles after-hours calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so you never miss a customer again. See why over 60,000 businesses trust OpenPhone. They're offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnCollege. That's OpenPhone.com/LockedOnCollege. They'll even port over existing numbers for free. OpenPhone. No missed calls, no missed customers. Thank you for making Locked On ACC your first listen. For your next listen, make sure you check out our other shows. Kenton Gibbs and Grayson Boone do a fantastic job covering NC State on Locked On Wolfpack. Of course, the Will Wade excitement and a fork in the road year for Dave Doran coming up. I cover all things Miami on Locked On Canes. All right, so, Kenton, if you go by the way most people handicap the ACC this year, it's pretty much unanimous that Clemson is, being predicted to win the ACC for the second straight year. And then most of the metrics have like Miami coming in second. So theoretically you get Clemson versus Miami early December in Charlotte for the ACC title game. But I noticed a lot of folks are not picking that matchup. Josh Pate from On3 Sports, for one, is actually taking a flyer on Georgia Tech. Again, the secret is out, right? They're no longer underrated. Georgia Tech is now just rated. He's got Clemson versus Georgia Tech in the ACC championship game. We're going to have coming out tomorrow our ACC preview show with a bunch of other hosts from the Locked On ACC channels. And, we were kind of discussing our pre-show thoughts the other day, and I'm expecting the picks to come in heavily for Louisville to face Clemson in the conference championship. So, Kenton, do you see it playing out in a way where it's, somebody else other than Miami facing Clemson? Or maybe you're going to get so bold, you say Clemson doesn't even make it.
Oh, no. Clemson is absolutely making it. Barring a major catastrophe hitting that team, they're going to make the ACC championship game. But the question is, who will meet them there? And I've got a few different thoughts on this thing, okay? If I had to say the team that was most likely to meet them there, I would agree that, in my personal opinion, it would be Louisville. But if I had to say the most vanilla pick, if I had to put some money down on it, obviously your boys, the Miami Hurricanes, because on paper, every offseason, they're there. They're going to be right there, right? But the spiciest take, I'm going to go with a team that is from the Triangle. My NC State, no, I'm joking. The Duke Blue Devils. The Duke Blue Devils are a team that I look at as they could be there. And not just because of a situation where they're that good, it's also how the stars could align for them, okay? I'm going to read off their conference schedule to you, and you tell me how many of these games Duke won't be favored in this year. Okay. Against NC State, against Syracuse.
They'll be favored, yeah.
Okay, against Syracuse, Cal, Georgia Tech, Clemson, UVA, UNC, Wake Forest. How many of those would not be favored? I counted two.
I was going to say for sure Clemson, that's one. Probably Georgia Tech, that's two.
Two. If you lose two conference games, can you make the ACC championship? Absolutely. Absolutely you can. And if things shake out right for them, they absolutely can do it. And again, this is my spiciest take for a reason, because if I'm looking at Georgia Tech, you could ask a very similar question. And how many games will they not be favored in? And you'd only count one, the one against Clemson. But we already know what Georgia Tech is. We already know. We've talked about them and given them a lot of love. So, again, Georgia Tech is a team that's obviously to watch there. But the spicy take has to go to Duke. The most vanilla has to go to Miami because, again, on paper, talent everywhere. Talent just, it's oozing out of the ears, even though some head coaches would argue that they have not been traditionally talented for some reason. And then you've got, of course, the team that I'm most expecting, Louisville, in there as well. But again, I wouldn't be shocked at all to see Georgia Tech in that mix. I will actually have Louisville and Georgia Tech 1A, 1B in terms of what I think will happen the most.
Yeah, I mean, Louisville, and this is a story for most ACC teams, Louisville just needs to find the consistency, because a season ago, they beat Clemson head-to-head. That happened a season ago. And again, Louisville might be better this year. Miller Moss could very well be a better quarterback or have a better season this year than Tyler Shuck did last year. That wouldn't surprise any of us. Their two freshman running backs who tore it up last year are a year older, a year, more experienced, another year in the weight room for them. So Louisville getting there would not surprise me. Georgia Tech getting there would surprise me a little bit, wouldn't shock me. Duke getting there would kind of shock me. But again, stranger things have happened. I won't surprise too many people. I will give the nod to Miami as who I expect to get there to face Clemson. A big reason for that being, I think legitimately, you mentioned like Miami, obviously on paper, they usually have talent supposedly, but I think that they legitimately have 2.5 deep at virtually every position this year. It's the most talented roster top to bottom that Mario Cristobal has coached at Miami. And, one of the big reasons why I would have hesitated to put Miami in there was, up until a few weeks ago, hadn't had a chance to watch Carson Beck throw in person. Looks fantastic. Like no restrictions coming off the surgery. Really high football IQ. Been pleasantly surprised, and I think Miami's been pleasantly surprised with him. So I would lean to Miami. One team, Kenton, that I know people are going to get tempted to put in there again would be SMU. Couple of big reservations that I have about SMU, why I would feel that Louisville, Miami, maybe even Georgia Tech, Duke, because you talked about Duke's schedule, why I would think they could be more likely to get there than SMU getting back there. The conference schedule, is a lot tougher for SMU this year than it was a year ago. They dodged pretty much every bullet of top teams in the ACC last year. They had a very favorable debut Power 4 schedule. They don't have that this year. Not to mention, as we all know, the secret's out. They go from the hunter to the hunted this year. Because I'm looking at the SMU schedule. If they can get back to the ACC championship game, Kenton, they're going to have to earn it because they have Clemson on the road.
Yeah.
They have Miami at home, and they have Louisville. Now, Miami and Louisville are both at home, so obviously that gives them a little bit better of a chance to win one or both of those games, but they essentially play the top 3 teams in the conference, or top 3 of 4 if you include SMU as one of those. They didn't have that on the schedule last year, so they're really going to have to be better than they were a year ago just to get back to the same ACC championship game.
The reality is, when you look at SMU's schedule, if you remove them from the mix, they are playing all of the teams. I know that this is a little misleading, but they're playing all of the teams that have been in the last 2 ACC championships. They played Clemson in the last ACC championship. The year before that, it was Clemson and Louisville. Both of those teams are on their schedule. You are not dodging those teams, not to mention you've got a ranked team in Miami that you've got to go play as well. You know, they call you Miami West. Well, we're going to see who's the best Miami at this point, Miami East or Miami West, because you're going to have to see those teams. So you're getting all of the good of the conference in essence in terms of the top 4 to 5 teams, with the exception of about Georgia Tech and Duke, maybe. That's pretty much all you're missing there. You're getting everybody else, though. So you are absolutely right. And that's why I said Duke could possibly make it, because, again, it's not just based off overall schedule. Overall schedule, the SMU's out of conference, East Texas A&M, Baylor, Missouri State, TCU. Don't really look at any of those and say, oh, boy, they're cooked. They are done. You know, those boys are well done. They're overcooked. You're going to be chewing for minutes trying to get through. Not that. Nobody is saying that about their non-conference schedule. However, their conference schedule, now that is tough as nails. That is as close as you could get to a murderer's row in the ACC, again, without just 1 or 2 of those top teams. So, you know, SMU, that conference schedule is what I look at and say, we're looking at minimum 2 games that you are not going to be favored in, and a third that you could easily lose, and nobody would be shocked to say, oh, Louisville beat this team.
Yeah, well, when we come back, another team we haven't talked about are the North Carolina Tar Heels, who made one of the most compelling offseason moves in college football history, hiring Bill Belichick to be their head coach. Bill Belichick is getting endorsed by a former ACC head coach who also had an interesting angle on the UNC situation. You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on Locked On ACC. I'm so pumped for PrizePicks season. Guys, I am going to be all over this all football season long. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason is already heating up in the NFL. College football is not far behind. Whether you've got your eye on big name quarterbacks or breaking running backs, PrizePicks makes it easy to get in on the game. PrizePicks is simple to play. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you can cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. I've been using PrizePicks since 2021. I love how simple it is. I can get a lineup in before my coffee finishes brewing in the morning. Folks, the flex play is a total game changer. Even when one of your picks misses, you can still double your money. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks, run your game. We are also brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th, mark your calendars, is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, This is your moment. Take a flyer on the MVP race. If you're feeling Lamar Jackson is going to get it done, take that flyer on August 26th. You want to crown your Super Bowl champ? Is this the year Buffalo finally gets it done? Or you want to parlay your division winner dark horses? You want to visit the FanDuel app today. Start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Thank you for making Locked On ACC your first listen. For your next listen, make sure you check out The Portal. It's one of the new podcasts in the Locked On family. Our pal Brian Smith talks all things transfer portal, NIL, recruiting. The Portal is available free wherever you get your pods and available free on YouTube. All right, so former Wake Forest head coach Dave Clawson was on the College Game Day podcast, and he had this to say about North Carolina making the big splash, right? Is it going to be more of a PR move, or is it really going to set their football foundation? But he says, I really view this as North Carolina's all-in moment in football, Clawson said, of hiring Belichick. I think they've always been viewed as a basketball school first, and the level of investment they have in Bill, his staff, the strength staff, and the level of investment they have in the players is a lot different than the support that Mac Brown got. And you know what? I think that that's a good quote in terms of the nuances that come with this, Kenton, because we all look at this as North Carolina hired Bill Belichick. Well, they did that. They also invested in a general manager who's got experience as an NFL GM in Mike Lombardi. They have invested, like he said, in the coaching staff, strength and conditioning. So is this North Carolina's all-in moment on football, and will that pay off for them?
I think this is their all-in moment in football. I don't think it'll pay off for them. I think that you went out and you got a coach that, with all due respect, everybody can say football is football is football. This is a coach that has not ever coached at the college level. No GA experience, no coordinator experience, no experience of any kind at the college level. And we're going to sit here and say, oh, they're prepared to be great right off the bat. And then that's the other part of it. Are you getting a guy that's going to stick around to build this into greatness? That's the next question up. We all know Bill Belichick wants to be a pro football coach. He does not care for the excuses and mistakes of young guys. So let alone, we're talking 18 to 22-year-olds here. What are we doing here? I do admit they very much so went all in. So if this does not work out, North Carolina fans should not complain, oh, we haven't made the investment into football. We have not tried. So I will give them that. But to me, the play, if you're saying, hey, I'm going all in last year's coaching search cycle, you promise all of this support and all of these resources to that coach down there in New Orleans. You go down there and you go talk to Summerall at Tulane and you say, hey, we're not leaving till you get back on this plane with us, or till you sign an agreement to get back on this plane with us. You know why? A young up-and-comer. If he's great there, he'll be great there for the next 5 to 10 years.
That's right. With
the type of support you give him. Bill Belichick, I don't think, has 5 years left coaching regardless. I don't think he has 5 left in him. So you look at that. You look at what was Bill Belichick doing the last time we saw him coaching. It was so bad. He's now losing. He's now arguing with reporters about whether or not he was fired or whether or not it was a mutual agreement to step down.
Yeah.
And you're telling me that the guy that last time we saw him, he looked old and worn and not as mentally sharp and as if the game had passed him by. And now we're going to throw him in a new lane that he's never been in and say, oh, yeah, man, this, we know that you were the greatest F1 racer to ever live, so you should be good at NASCAR. Hold on. Who said that? We know the F1 is a little bit more difficult and there's a little bit different parts moving. It's still a different ball game. You still have to get adjusted. So an expectation for him to be successful right off the bat is a little naive, in my opinion. And then you struggle with that part. And then you say, well, he's probably not going to be around there to build. Well, what is this for? In the short term, it's not going to be great. In the long term, he's probably not going to be there. So where is the return on this investment? I do agree. I commend North Carolina for making the investment. I just don't see the return there.
Yeah, and I'm skeptical on that as well. But I'm happy to see them going all in on football, and maybe not to the same financial extent, but I've seen a couple of other programs that are improving in that regard, right? Duke, I don't necessarily know if Duke is investing as much money into their program as North Carolina is right now, but when they had Mike Elko there, he started really a lot of momentum for that program, and they're more aggressive now in the transfer portal. Manny Diaz is doing a really good job there so far. I like what Syracuse is doing, with Fran Brown and with the way they've been recruiting, right? Taking, blue chip players out of the Southeast has been impressive. So I think that they're kind of approaching their all-in moment. I want to see the program we talked about at the top of the show. I want to see more of this from Virginia Tech, because you talk about a really rich football history. And I know that all their success came down to it was a different era of college football, and it was a coach who was there for multiple decades with what Frank Beamer was able to do there. But I would like to see them recapture, what was a pretty good history, because they were on a good roll, 90s, early 2000s. I want to see them reach that again.
Not only were they on a good roll, they have what it takes to be on a good roll again. You are near multiple hotbeds of talent. You can promise kids from the DMV, hey, if mama, grandma, dad, granddad, uncle, cousin, sister, brother, auntie want to come see you play, guess what? If you come here, they can come see you play. Oh, yeah. We are looking at a situation where the top players from that state are always leaving and going elsewhere, and we're wondering, well, wait, why aren't they as good as they should be? At the end of the day, I'm a big believer in, if your state is a hotbed, the first thing you got to do, close the door to the other schools. Close the door to the Georgias, the Clemsons of the world. Close the door right away to the Michigans of the world. Close the door. If you are near a major metropolitan, or if you are near a major area that is very close to you, you've got to close the door, and they just haven't. But like you said, Donno, that investment will lead to that. That investment leads to closing that door. That pushing all the chips to the middle, saying, listen here, Pro, I'm going to give you every resource you could ask for. You're going to be armed to the teeth, brother. I'm going to give you more than you could imagine. They're going to say our NIL is almost as scary as Into the Sandman at night, okay? Now, that's what we're going to do, and we're going to give you 2 years to figure it out. And if you can't get it done in those 2 years, when we push all the chips to the middle of the table, we give you full revenue sharing money, we give you all of this stuff, then you got to go. You got to go, because somebody can win here. It's been proven. It's been proven that coaches can win there. And so, if we're looking at a situation where that team goes all in and they can't get it done, I understand. But to kind of be on the fence about it, or to kind of be like, look at what happened with Florida. Raised all that money to fire Billy Napier. And then, DJ Lagway comes in and plays pretty well. All of a sudden, all that money went to the portal. Now they got one of the best portal classes. Now they're doing well on the recruiting trail as well. How does that work, right? Cause and effect. When you put up all that money, but it went somewhere else, it went somewhere else. But to put up all that money is the first part. So you got to put up all the resources. I know it feels strange to say, but college football now, putting up the money is part of the game.
100% and well said. We appreciate everyone for making Locked On ACC your first listen. You want to smash that like button if you're watching us on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on YouTube, wherever you get your pods. Make sure you follow Kenton at Locked On Wolfpack and at TGIF_Kenton on X. Follow me at Locked On Canes and at Alex Donno on X. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow on another episode of Locked On ACC, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.